Hey there Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. And if you are new here, my name is Hannah. I am a Western Practical Astrologer. Okay, so in today's video we are going to be talking all about the mythologies of Scorpio, Mesopotamian, Egyptian and Greek. That way you can gain a deeper understanding of this regenerative sign. Stay tuned because we are going to get into it. But before we do, make sure that you give this video a like if you do like it, subscribe, click that notification bell to keep updated with more videos. And if you're interested in booking a reading with me, then you can visit my website, hannahselsewhere.com. There you can also find my practical astrology ebooks guide, merch, cheat sheets, and the calendar for 2024 is also available there. And I also want to give a massive shout out to my patrons over at Patreon. Thank you so much for all of your support. If you are interested in gaining access to videos early as well as PDF guides and daily forecasts, then head on over to Patreon. As always, I hope you find this video to be helpful. Let's do this. Okay, so to begin, I just want to give a massive shout out to the author of this book, Astrology for Lovers, Liz Greene. I highly recommend this read. It is incredible. Thanks to Liz Greene's knowledge, I have been able to create this very series. All right, so let's start off by turning our attention to ancient Babylon. The constellation of Scorpio was referred to as, I will insert the word here, the Scorpion. This sign can be read as the creature with a burning sting. The name for Scorpion also means sharp weapon. And get this, the Scorpion people guarded the entrance to the underworld. The Scorpion people, they were half human, half scorpion. Ever seen the movie The Mummy, The Scorpion King, starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? Yeah. In that movie, the Scorpio King or Scorpion King swears an oath to Anubis, god of the god of the underworld, exchanging his soul for the power to defeat his enemies. But yes, in ancient Babylon, the Scorpion people, they were warriors. They were protectors. They guarded the gate of the sun as it descended every night into darkness. They were the offspring of Tiamat, who was the goddess of the sea. Some sources depict Tiamat as a sea serpent or a dragon, which is quite interesting as we do explore more of Scorpio. The Scorpion people, they were created to wage war against the younger gods for the murder of her of Tiamat's mate, Absu. I'm gonna put the words, so if my pronunciations are incorrect, I do apologize. So they would open the doors for Shamash as he traveled out each day, and then they closed the doors when he returned at night. Moreover, they warned travelers about the dangers that lay ahead of their post. They also possessed a glance of death. Fascinating to think about when we consider the famous Scorpio star. Though, who was the ruler of the underworld, you might ask? I am going to insert the name here because I don't want to butcher this name. Ereshkigal, perhaps that is how it's pronounced. But Lady of the Great Place and dispenser of the water of life, as written by astrologer Jessica Davidson. Though who was this ruler of the underworld? She was the queen of the great earth and was the goddess of Cure. So Cure was the land of the dead or the underworld. She became queen of the underworld after being abducted by Cure, who was the cosmic serpent. Enki, the twin sister of Ereshkigal, entered the underworld and tried to save her, but was achieved returning to the world with the seeds of the tree of knowledge. So Ereshkigal represented inner knowing, and the underworld shows the mysteries of life, of the unknown. And do you recall the story of Ainana? We explored this in the Aries mythology video. Now, the story of Ainana's descent into the underworld points to the dark side of life, and that both light and dark coexist. Both Ainana and Ereshkigal are associated with each other. But in the ancient Sumerian poem, Ainana's descent to the underworld, in this poem, Ereshkigal is described as Ainana's older sister. And take a look at this image. This is the queen of night relief and dates back to the old Babylonian period. It is said that she represents either Ereshkigal or Ishtar, aka Ainana. This is significant though because there are questions today regarding the connections between the Burnie relief and Lilith. Now, in Hebrew language texts, the term Lilith translates to night creatures, night monster, night hag, or screech owl. And Lilith is seen as a demon of the night who steals babies. In Babylonia, Lilith is seen as a spirit or as a demon. Naturally, there is more, so much more to Lilith, but I thought to share this information because I think it's interesting when creating these connections with Scorpio. Now, also remember that Libra was formed from Scorpio's claws. The scales of Libra symbolize the autumn equinox and how day and night are equal. And when we look to the scorpion stinger, well, this poisonous sting would rise just before the winter solstice, symbolizing the death of the sun and the dissolution of the year. Indeed, Scorpio is a sign of death and rebirth. It is the sign that rules the underworld. Now remember, in the Taurus video, we talked about how Ainana and the bull are closely linked. Taurus is the opposite sign of Scorpio. Ainana was the goddess of sexual love, warfare, and fertility, and then Ainana sends Taurus to Kill, Gilgamesh. Now, Ainana is annoyed with Gilgamesh because he rejected her advances, but the bull actually ended up being slaughtered instead. Okay, so let's now move on to Egyptian mythology. So in ancient Egypt, there is a goddess named Serket who guarded the underworld. She was the scorpion goddess. She either had a scorpion on her head or she was a scorpion with a woman's head. She could heal venomous stings and bites, and her name means who tightens the throat. I know. So her name can also be translated as she who causes the throat to breathe. But overall, she was a protector. She is the protector, but also destructive. She is considered the protector of the dead. Now, Serket also accompanied the god of the underworld, Osiris. Osiris judged the dead after their hearts were weighed, but this was also about renewal. So yes, Serket joined Osiris through the underworld. Perhaps you remember us talking about Isis in the Virgo mythology video. It is said that Isis helped the dead enter the afterlife. She helped Osiris. Now, Osiris was her husband. She was also viewed as the divine mother of the pharaoh. Now, after Set killed Osiris, Isis sought to bring him back from the dead so that he could conceive Horus. Both Osiris and Isis are linked to alchemy, death and rebirth. And then also consider Libra's role being the scales. Like I said, the scales of Libra were once the claws of the scorpion. There will be more information about Libra in the Libra mythology video, but Virgo is also connected to Libra. There is a union between these signs. The maiden Virgo, Astraea, goddess of innocence and purity, is linked to Libra. She holds the scales of justice, and the scales of justice associated with Astraea became Libra. Astraea represents natural law, natural order, the balancing of the seasons. And so, therefore, the scales of Libra are connected to both Virgo and Scorpio, noticing how all three of these signs are interlinked. And remember, we talked about the glyphs of these signs, how one curls inwards and the other points outwards, okay? So looking at Virgo and Scorpio in this case. So what we notice here, is just how these three signs are closely connected, and it's very fascinating to think about. But just to focus on Scorpio, notice how both Libra and Virgo show up within the mythology here. So whilst Osiris is the god of renewal, Set is the god of destruction. But this is about how the two are aspects of the same thing. Yin, yang, polarity. And Libra sits between Scorpio and Virgo, acting as the mediator, the balancer of the two, even the balancer of the entire zodiac. This is Libra's role. Again, more on Libra in its own video. But isn't this quite profound that Scorpio shows up this way within the mythology? From the very beginning, Scorpio has been associated with the underworld. And in Egypt, Scorpio rose during the month of May. The heat would essentially dry up the land, and it was Selket who was the protector of the dead, and she was the head of the ancient group of healers. She was a beneficial goddess. All right, so let's get into Greek mythology. The Greek mythology of Scorpio. This type of mythology is always my personal favorite. So Scorpio is connected with the Greek story of Hercules and the Hydra. The story has it that Hercules was completing the 12 labors given to him by King. I will just insert the words here, the name here. So for 12 years, he traveled all over to complete these incredible tasks. One of these labors was to kill the Lernaean Hydra. This creature had 9 snake heads, with each possessing deadly poisonous fangs. The Hydra was preying upon the folk living in the countryside, and so Hercules went to destroy this large beast so that the people could be left in peace. However, after having one of its heads cut off, this freak of a creature would grow 3 new heads in its place. After many attempts of cutting off the Hydra's many heads, Hercules was surrounded and cornered. He couldn't stand a chance. Hercules enlisted the aid of his nephew Iolaus. I'll put the words. As Hercules severed each head, Iolaus would come along in his place and cauterize the fresh wounds so that no new heads could emerge. When only one immortal head remained, Hercules cut it off and buried it within a jewel. However, according to Liz Greene, another version of this story follows that Hercules remembered a piece of advice that he received from a wise elder. The elder told Hercules that the Hydra could not tolerate the light. And so Hercules grabs the creature and places it up into the spotlight, resulting in the monster shriveling up and dying. Either way, the Hydra was buried under a rock. Now, the myth of Hercules and the Hydra, so many things coming up here. This myth can signify qualities of Scorpio that are deep and hidden within an individual's psyche, such as violence, jealousy, anger, rage, resentment, and frustrations surrounding asexuality. These intense animal behaviors that when we try to cut them off from our human condition, they grow back stronger and more poisonous and destructive than ever. We may try to deny our darkness, but by doing so, we end up destroying ourselves, i.e., repressed asexual desires turning into self-hatred, or repressed anger turning into depression. Therefore, the symbol of the light can represent the awareness and the integration of the qualities we deny. When we are brave enough to bring what is hidden in the darkness and present it in the light, when we face it head on, we transform. We are reborn. Instead of cutting ourselves into 1,000 pieces, we accept our darkness and we integrate it. Furthermore, this myth can be associated with qualities of Scorpio that are indeed resourceful and determined and very driven, strategic too. Hercules used the support of Lolith to help him defeat the Hydra. Even Scorpios can be very compassionate people. They care so deeply about the ones they love and the ones they trust. Likewise, he showed great strength and determination on his quest to defeat the Hydra. He was brave. He faced his fears. He faced his demons. The snakes, even thinking about here, the Hydra with its many snake heads, he faced these snakes. Indeed, facing our shadow requires courage, strength, resilience. Scorpio is a very difficult sign to navigate within our charts. Facing our demons is not an easy task. And I'm going to be honest, what has been coming up for me a lot lately is that there are things in life that cannot be fixed. No matter how much we try. Megan Devine said, there are some things in life that can't be fixed. They can only be carried. This is a quote related to grief. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Scorpio is the sign of literal death. It's a sign tied to grief. Furthermore, I want to remind you of the mythology of Virgo. This is significant. Just to even see just how interconnected Virgo and Scorpio are within the Zodiac. The Greek story of Demeter and her daughter Persephone. The story includes the goddess of agriculture being Demeter and the goddess of spring being Persephone, and then the god of the underworld being Hades. Persephone was the daughter of Zeus and Demeter. One day, while Persephone was attending to the land, Hades abducted her. He wanted to have her for himself. After realizing that she was missing, Demeter was sick with worry. She asked Helios, the sun god, what had happened. But after learning that Hades took her daughter, Demeter in her misery and in her fury became unconcerned with the earth, resulting in a great famine taking place. Zeus then intervened and commanded Hades to release Persephone. However, down in the underworld, Hades tricked Persephone into eating some pomegranate seeds before leaving. Hades was sly and cunning and knew that by Persephone eating this dead food, she would return to him. This resulted in the spring goddess returning to Earth during 6 months of the year, whilst spending the other 6 months in the underworld with Hades. Now, when Persephone was on Earth, plants and crops, they would grow. But whenever she was in the underworld, the plants and the crops, they would die. Hence the harvest and gathering of food for the winter. Remember, the goddess Demeter is Ceres in Roman mythology. And so this myth is also linked to Ceres in the chart. Some astrologers assign Ceres to Virgo, and Ceres is also about attachment. Ceres is about separation too, which we can identify in the myth of Demeter and Persephone. Grief and loss as well are linked to Ceres. And so once more, we see this relationship between Scorpio and Virgo. We notice how Ceres points to grief within the chart. So does Pluto. Though from these myths, we also recognize the qualities of Scorpio that are protective and intelligent, regenerative, transformative, intuitive, strong, sharp, wise as well. Scorpio is so much about self-mastery. And also these parts of ourselves which are powerful, driven, observant. These parts that are tied to survival. Now, on the other hand, there are also parts of Scorpio that can be susceptible to its own weaknesses, to its own temptations. Scorpio can tend to be quite an obsessive sign, hyperfixated on things, difficulty letting things go, can be more prone to addiction in this respect as well. So the side to Scorpio that can essentially destroy itself, self-sabotage, self-destruction, self-annihilation. This is a sign that can go to extremes, and such extremes can include different types of addiction here. Scorpio can fear vulnerability and opening up to others. Perhaps many feel they can't, as if they don't have a safe space for their emotions. But this isn't true, of course, for all Scorpios or for people with Scorpio placements. Some think they can handle their emotions on their own, or like they are strong enough to get through anything. Some have their emotions thrown back in their face as well. The things they share are used against them. I actually have Moon in the 8th house, and I have experienced this in my life. I have had a very hard time letting others in on my raw and my very sensitive emotions, very intense emotions, especially if I have been hurt in the past. I'm like, nope, I can't trust that person. Rebuilding trust is very, very hard for me. Betrayal. Okay. And this is the thing. Betrayal is also linked to this sign. Times in which we have been betrayed, especially by those closest to us. However, the thing about this too is some Scorpios, they can be secretive. There are sides to Scorpio that can be cunning, vindictive, manipulative, playing mind games, testing other people. Some who can also do criminal acts to get what they want, right? Ruthless behavior too. Lies. There can be extreme selfishness on their part, deception as well. There can also be this obsession with power and importance. This is where we notice the qualities Scorpio can often lack. Qualities of being easygoing and relaxed, as well as qualities of compromise, considering others, being optimistic, being hopeful, and being freeing. Consider where Scorpio sits in the zodiac. Opposite Taurus, the sign of relaxation, steadiness, stability, and between the signs Libra and Sagittarius. Libra is the hidden self of Scorpio. Libra encourages Scorpio to integrate qualities of negotiation and receiving feedback from others. And Sagittarius correlates with the qualities Scorpio is here to learn. So qualities Scorpio grows into, qualities of being inspirational, adventurous, spontaneous, uplifting, and also seeing the bigger picture. Scorpio teaches us about the importance of facing our shadow, being brave enough to look into our unconscious habits and patterns, especially those that are self-destructive. Scorpio takes our focus to our psyche, encouraging us to have the audacity to transform. We turn our focus to the hidden undercurrents of life that go on within our interactions and our environment. We start to sniff out the hidden facets that are operating beneath the surface, such as hidden intentions and actions that are playing out from within the unconscious mind. This archetype is so much about trust and honesty, but at the same time, lies and deception. Trust is an essential element to any relationship we form, especially within an intimate relationship where finances and materials are involved. Likewise, the trust we hold towards those in positions of power is also important, such as, a manager, a politician, or a therapist. Ultimately, it's trust that is required if we choose to develop a deep and intimate bond with another person. But we also must be willing to be vulnerable. Following on from this, I want to read something from an article that I found online. I will link it down below with all of the other sources that I've used. In trusting someone, you put yourself in their power to some extent, and in doing so, risk being harmed if they do not take seriously the ethical demands of having that power. And also, whilst I was typing this script, what came to my mind was, do we need to build trust first before being vulnerable? Or does vulnerability build trust? Which comes first? And I found a quote that said, "Trust is a product of vulnerability that grows over time and requires work, attention, and full engagement. Trust can take so long to build, but seconds to break." Though according to Brené Brown, both trust and vulnerability, they grow together, which I can see. And small gestures of genuine care and connection, they add to trust and vulnerability. So I'm curious, what do you think about this? How do you view this trust and vulnerability part of it? Whichever way though, Scorpio points to these concerns, to these matters, strongly so. And as for the power piece, perhaps the power dynamic is often why so many of us fear trusting others, opening up to others, and being vulnerable, because we don't want to feel as if other people have the power over us or like they can control our emotions. But the thing about this is, such matters also stem from childhood, from our upbringing. For example, did you feel safe to open up with your parents, or perhaps your parents were a safe space for you, but you still feared that you wouldn't be believed or that you would get in trouble? We learn from Scorpio that sometimes, or a lot of the time, all is not what it seems. But by an individual unraveling the murky depths, the murky waters of Scorpio, they can uncover hidden complexities that may implode on their psyche. Though whether or not an individual chooses to investigate their unconscious, that is a whole other question to unpack within itself. Still, by an individual probing into their psyche, they are transformed time and time again with every new piece of information discovered. When does it end? When an individual dies? When did it begin? When they were born? Or does it continue into the afterlife? It's these types of questions that make Scorpio a sign of death, rebirth, transformation, and also a sign tied to the occult. And even in this life, this is a sign tied to major life transitions, such as losing a loved one, having a baby, getting married, getting divorced, losing your job, being in a life-threatening situation or an accident, being very, very ill, very ill, no longer being friends with someone, walking away from a toxic situation or a relationship. The list goes on. But we transform through such experiences. Scorpio is a sign of empowerment, emotional resilience, intense willfulness, and mighty force. A force so strong that no matter what happens to an individual throughout their life, they still have the strength to awaken each morning until the day they die. But overall, Scorpio explores the unconscious and shows up as renewal, death, and rebirth in our charts. This deep investigator is an emotional powerhouse and is reborn into a higher state of consciousness each time they die. Okay then, cosmic warriors, so that concludes my video talking all about the mythology of Scorpio. Please let me know if you found this video to be helpful. Did you learn something new? I would really appreciate your feedback because, like you, I'm always learning. You can find all of the sources that I used in this video in the description box down below. And again, I want to say thank you to all of my patrons over at Patreon. Thank you so much for all of your support. As always, let me know your thoughts and your opinions on today's video in the comment section. But with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And of course, if you would like to see more videos from myself and you have not yet subscribed, then make sure that you click that subscribe button and also give this video a like if you did like it today. And I will be back with another video very, very soon. Bye.